Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Event Tech Live 2021. On to our next session, which today is sustainability in the hybrid event era. Again, another cutting edge topic I'm sure we're all very interested in. And for this session, we have got 4 panelists who are going to be discussing the topics. Again, if you have any questions throughout the day's session, just drop them in the chat. I'll be fielding your questions to them at the end. So today I am very happy to welcome Duncan Reid, Ruby Sweeney, Basha Dudziak, and Nick Paul. Welcome, everyone. How are we all doing? Are we well?
All good, thank you.
Very good, hello.
Excellent. Welcome to you all. So, really looking forward to this session. So, if you're ready, let's take it away.
Thank you very much for joining our session today on sustainability in the hybrid era. Very topical. Obviously, we've got COP26 started yesterday,
Yes.
and we've been really lucky to pull together a really nice panel. Duncan, Ruby, and Basha. Duncan obviously is a huge sort of figure within the sustainability area within the event space. So just really want to just spend a couple of minutes to get you guys to introduce yourselves, so everyone knows who you are and why you're here, and then we'll sort of dig into the conversation. So Duncan, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much for that, Nick. Yes, I'm Duncan Reid. I've worked in the events industry for 20 years. I had 10 years at UBM, who then became Informa, and then the last 10 years was at Clarion. And pre-pandemic, I was kind of looking after the portfolio that was all of our energy shows globally. And I've seen over the last couple of years, net zero becoming more and more important as everyone's kind of moved their energy over. When kind of the pandemic sort of hit, after that, I then left Clarion and set up a company called Reset Connect with a whole load of people that I've kind of organised events with over that 20-year career. And we kind of looked at, different markets that were of interest to us. And I think from, everyone's got a great story about why they work in the sector they work in. And I think I just looked at the way, the kind of damage that some of our we're doing through our business practices on kind of the environment. And I just thought actually maybe there was an opportunity to kind of do something a little bit different. This week, as Nick said, is a really big week for the UK. Every kind of 5 years or so, there's a really big COP event that takes place. And 2015 was a really big event where 197 countries signed up to various kind of carbon reduction emissions. And our plan over the next, between now and kind of 2050 is to really get our emissions down below to net zero. And the events industry, I think, has got a really big part to play here. I think from everything from the energy we use to the kind of transport that we do to just the amount of waste that all of our events, all of our venues do around the world, I think the events sector has kind of a big part to play in this. And I think from the last 18 months, what it's taught us is actually we can be quite successful online with our video elements. And I think hybrid and the kind of new future of events can actually look quite good and play a significant part in that race to zero.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Dunk. And Ruby, how about you? What are you up to and who are you?
Thanks, Nick, and thank you, everyone. It's great to be here with you this afternoon. So I'm Ruby Sweeney. I'm the founder of the Events Hub. I've been in the industry for 19 years, and today, the 1st of November, we are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of the Events Hub. And we essentially set up to help bring event services to organisations who traditionally don't have access to professional conference and event planning. And during the pandemic, we went down the route of virtual and hybrid events. And as a technophobe, I think, which I think a lot of event planners can relate to, that adoption, that learning and education of events and platforms and technology and production was probably a bit of a baptism of fire, but actually it's helped us to push ourselves in places and areas that we probably wouldn't have pushed ourselves before. So as a company now, we are offering virtual, hybrid and in-person conferences and events, and sustainability is really high up on our agenda in terms of how our clients and their delegates and their visitors and their guests interact and engage with events. So it's definitely up there with us for the event services that we are delivering. Thanks, Nick.
Excellent, thank you. And now, Basha, we'll get your name right. So, Basha Dujiak, over to you.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. It's not an easy task. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Just quickly about me, I've been in the industry well over a decade now and touched different areas of it, but I very much come from event organizer background, touching different areas of client management, sales account management, and now to incorporate technology into that. But importantly, I would consider myself as someone who is deeply passionate about our industry. I think we all are. That's why we're here today. And also a keen observer of all the trends that are impacting the future of it. And sustainability is certainly one of them. And I think I'm really keen on the discussion today and getting under the skin of the much broader concept of sustainability than we have historically thought. But I'll leave it for your next questions, Nick, before I get deeper into that.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and I'm Nick Paul. I'm founder of Link Technologies. My life in events started in 1996 when I joined Redex Meetings, worked in a few different events there, including World Travel Market, and then ran about 50 odd technology conferences before jumping over the fence to the world of event tech, where I came up with the idea of the interactive sales floor plan and built that with CoConnex, and then worked with a few other companies, which has led me to here. But certainly sustainability is a hugely important topic, and I think highlighted obviously by the massive conference going up in Glasgow at the moment. So it seems a very apt time to be speaking about it with our event industry colleagues. So a few years ago, if someone would have said sustainability, we would have said, we'd think about greenhouse gases, we'd think about reducing the carbon footprint. But sustainability means much more now. So Dunk, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on what the term sustainability now means and how it's evolved and how it actually impacts on the corporate world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks, Nick. So I think I probably first started really becoming aware of it with the sort of pre-Olympics. I used to run Convex at the time, and as we kind of got into the Olympics, there were a whole load of ISOs based around kind of CSR initiatives, which was kind of quite big at the time. I think the really big, so we've had ISO 2012-1, which has been around with us for, well over a decade. But I think it was really kind of the Paris Climate Accord in 2015, where you actually got a load of countries sign up to, basically net zero by 2050 and halving emissions by 2030. And I think that kind of created to sort of, the reason why we need to do it as well, is to sort of do the science bit for a little bit. I think pre-Paris, I think the planet was going to warm by 6 degrees versus post-industrial kind of level, which is kind of, you see the guys gluing themselves to kind of streets at the moment. 6 degrees, we're basically all dead. That's like an extinction event. So in Paris, they basically made a commitment that, and every 5 years they kind of get back together and kind of make a new commitment to kind of drive on. And at the moment, we're looking at about 2.7 degrees above industrial, pre-industrial levels, which is kind of still, massively rising water levels. It's the floods you've seen in Germany. It's the fires you've seen in California. It's that, but it's absolutely everywhere. And I think the UN basically in 2015 kind of, when it had Paris, they came up with these 17 sustainable development goals. So it kind of took it from, a nice to have, let's do some recycling or think about the environment, to kind of 17 frameworks that they, objectives that they want to hit by 2030. And that's everything from, getting rid of having clean water to clean energy to, each of the kind of, gender equality, each of where we want society to be is kind of covered in these points. And some of them are environmental, and that's, if we don't have a planet, then that's quite a big problem. But unless you're unless you're a billionaire and you're just jetting off to space. But for most of us, we want to have a planet. And then you've also got a whole lot of social elements in there as well. So it is environmental and it is also social. And I think, you know, so I think, and sustainability has gone into everything that we do. You know, it's in how we buy our food. It's in, you know, it's in how we consume our electricity. And I think that's probably one of the, you know, I think when we set up Reset Connect, what we were trying to do was move it away from just kind of a reliance on government and policy. And, you know, I think if we actually want change and we want to hit any of these goals, then it's up to business and it's up to the kind of finance sector, which ultimately funds business and gives us the loans or the mortgages or whatever it needs to retrofit our houses and build our businesses up. And I think, you know, we set up Reset Connect and we do some workshops, and it's quite interesting. You know, there's, I think a lot of people don't know where to start on sustainability. You know, it's quite a big thing, particularly when you look at these 17 areas that the UN have said we need to do, and knowing which one to start is obviously is quite a challenge. So I think if I was going to give the viewers today kind of 3 quick takeaways of what you can do to kind of make a meaningful impact, the first one's quite easy. Just switch your energy, both at home and in your business and all your events and the venues you book, and just make sure it's clean energy, not renewable energy, but clean energy, because things like biomass are actually renewable, even though you're kind of setting fire to things still, and that's still got a big carbon footprint. So I think, you know, move away from fossil fuels as quickly as you can and make sure that your energy provider is selling you clean energy. And if you're a venue, that means very quickly that you can do power purchase agreements where all your venues club together and can get kind of cheaper energy. And it's no more expensive than fossil fuels. In fact, if you look at the price of gas at the moment, it's actually significantly cheaper. So yeah, number one, switch to clean energy. Number two, and this is kind of, until I really started getting into it over the last sort of 12 months, you know, your pension actually is one of the biggest changes you can make. You know, there's £30 trillion invested in Europe in pensions. And if everyone just changed their pension to invest in kind of move out of fossil fuels or move out of arms or move out of tobacco and just move it to a green fund, you actually, as an individual and an employer and as an employee, have quite a lot of power by moving your pension funds, because ultimately people are not going to be investing in, you know, if people aren't investing in all those products, those businesses will soon stop doing making those products, and instead we'll have a kind of cleaner, greener future. So yeah, number one, switch to clean energy. Number two, pensions. And number three, for kind of, you know, the event industry, with backed by UFI and a whole load of the other event organizer sort of associations this year, have come up with, joined together with the UN to launch the netzerocarbonevents.org website and initiative, which is about the events industry signing up to net zero. And it's very simple. If you go on www.netzerocarbonevents.org, do it by this Friday and just make a commitment. And, you know, even if you know very little about it, it's more about the journey. It's about making that commitment and starting out on those, you know, making those steps, switching your energy provider, switching your pension, and starting to measure and track what it is that you do. So yeah, you know, that I think sustainability is, it's going to, you know, I mean, COP's on this week. It's going to be, if you look on the BBC website today, every news story is talking about kind of, you know, climate and the environment. And they've actually even put a little tab on the BBC website now that's there permanently. And I hope, and, you know, one of the reasons why we've got involved with launching an event next year is to keep that momentum going, so that actually businesses and, you know, everyone, whether you're events or heavy industry or, you know, energy or whatever it might be, are all kind of making that transition to net zero.
Excellent. Well, thank you. You've covered a lot of ground there, Duncan. Actually, I think the people watching might be quite useful if whatever links you can share them in the chat, and then they can have a look at those. It'd be really good. So Ruby, have you got anything to add to that, or anything else you think that how the sort of the term sustainability has evolved, and now what is it that the corporates have to do?
Yeah, I think, Nick, that there is still a lot to do, but I think that the conversation has definitely started. And again, with the pandemic, that conversation has obviously been compacted, I think, and you know, we've definitely been acting possibly quicker than we might have done. And I think from an event planner perspective, the whole 18 months of virtual events has really demonstrated that we can grow our events sustainably through virtual or hybrid, and we can offer better quality engagement, we can offer bigger numbers, and we can extend our reach. So again, from a sort of social sustainability perspective, I would say that we've even seen the increasing diversity of our speakers, of our delegates, of sponsors and supporters and partners of our events because we've been able to introduce and offer a virtual or a hybrid solution. So I think we do definitely have to sort of sit down with our clients and think about the sort of the purpose and the intention of our events, and also think about the behaviours and the habits of our attendees that have been impacted and changed as a result of the pandemic. So all of these things together just mean that we need to sort of have a bit more of a deeper dive into what our events are essentially about, and to also think about the sectors and the delegates that we are serving, because at the end of the day, it is about that attendee experience as well. So I think it's definitely made the conversation. It's a conversation starter for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I think that over the years, you found that different groups would have different sort of areas where they felt they could make a difference and try and highlight the whole initiative around sustainability. It was, you're going to a pub, and some pubs would focus on like the food miles. So it's almost like there was lots of different sort of faddy diets going on, really, in all different areas. But actually, what we need is that complete lifestyle change, where it automatically is something which is in your mind when you're looking at a certain area, just making sure that they're from a source which is as locally sourced as possible, and that are using ethically sort of driven companies. So I think it's a whole change of mindset, and in a way, it goes against the sort of the corporate world where we see that as being the big bad wolf. But it's so important, obviously, to all of us. But then looking at it now from the human perspective, Basha, how do you think it sort of translates into the events world? What would you say are the key things that people are going to start looking at within the event space when they sort of attend an event, or when we as organisers, people who used to organise events, put on events? What will be the drivers?
Mm-hmm. Well, to take a step back, let's look at sustainability from the basic level, and listening to people like Duncan, who's absolute titan of knowledge on the topic, and actually what he's mentioned about education and getting started and not getting overwhelmed. Let's start from the basic and try to understand what sustainability breaks down into. And I'm sure I'm not the only one here putting my hand up and saying, like, until, fairly recently, when hearing sustainability, I only thought about the environmental aspect of it, right? Carbon footprint, emissions, waste. And I didn't really associate it that much with other aspects of sustainability, so the social and the human aspect of it, right? And these areas are so important when talking about the sustainability, and to set the context for the conversation moving forward. And obviously my huge interest lies into how all of that translates into our event industry, and what it means to the future trends, to the event design, and how it sort of weaves into the trends we've seen over the last year and a half and moving forward. So I think to bring it to the event design and our trends that we're living, we can break it down into pre-2020 and 2020 and moving forward, right? So historically, as Duncan mentioned, unfortunately, our industry has been one of the culprits against the environmental sustainability. We've all seen the eye-watering amounts of waste produced from each event. Now, 2020 hit us, whether we liked it or not. Most of us obviously didn't. We had to pivot to virtual. And from the environmental sustainability point of view, virtual are the most friendly format of an event, right? The average emission reductions are, and Duncan, you can correct me here, but I believe, roughly speaking, between 65 to 85%, up to 98%, which is huge tick the box from the environmental point of view. But if you think I'm going to sit here and say, hey, let's just stick to virtual, that's going to tick the box. No, of course I'm not. I'm, as all of us are here, very passionate about what our industry is at its core, and it's creating human connections and the magic that happens when we do it in person, when we shake hands, when we meet, and all that beautiful side of it. But I think what it boils down to moving forward, and with the return to life and rethinking, redesigning event formats, and obviously the whole discussion around hybrid and what it means, how we deal with it and how we design it. It's bearing in mind sustainability as a greater purpose at the kind of back of our mind, or the forefront actually of our mind, at all times when designing the events, and thinking not about only the environmental aspect of it, but the human and social aspect of it. So I think hybrid events actually take care, maybe not take care, but they help a lot of those aspects, when they obviously help to reduce the environmental aspect of it, depending on the design, but they also are more user-centered and kind of human-centered designs. They cater for all those needs that are, to do with accessibility, and obviously having the choice of how to attend, and family situation, work-life balance. So I think, hybrid events really go in tandem with a broader discussion about sustainability and how it can serve the greater purpose. And so just to wrap it up, and sort of alluding to what Ruby has mentioned, I believe that we as an industry are very optimistic about the return to life. And of course we are. We're all very passionate about travel and making connections in person. But we have to think about our audience. And our audience might not always have exactly the same mindset as we do, right? And we have to recognize that audience needs have changed quite dramatically, I would say, since 2019. And human behaviors have changed. So I think overall we are and we will be a lot more intentional and purposeful about how we choose to connect, and when, and what formats serve the purpose of that connection best, and also what formats will serve the greater purpose of sustainability when we make those connections happen. Taking me, for example, today, I'm connecting with you from across the pond, hence still darkness behind me, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be able with you. Would I like to be with you in person? Of course, I would love to, but would I think twice before flying, half across the world for, 1 hour session, and obviously taking time and disrupting work-life balance, and obviously affecting environment partially through that as well. I think now I'm going to think twice about it more than I did before.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've got to mention that we're sort of really are in the hybrid world ourselves here. So we've got Ruby in Scotland, Duncan and I in the south, and obviously Basha there is sitting in Las Vegas. So this wouldn't have happened, pre-pandemic. This would not have happened. I think one of the things I'm sort of looking at is how much of it is the responsibility of the organizer. We talk about say the exhibition organisers. We know how much waste exhibitions produce. So, but how much of responsibility do the organisers have to actually then almost police their other stakeholders, police the sponsors and exhibitors, to make sure that they're adhering to the best policies to keep sustainability low? Duncan, have you got sort of a call on this? Do you think organisers have to step up and dictate?
I think it's kind of it's organisers, it's the venues, and it's the suppliers. I think it's about collaboration. I think, and you can make. I mean, we do. As I mentioned just now, we do these kind of workshops, and they have organisers and venues and suppliers on them. And actually, the learnings you get by kind of shared knowledge, I think it is amazing to watch. And I think I think one of the things that's happened in the pandemic even is that as the organizer community has collaborated a lot more than it ever has in the 20 years that I've done events. And I think sustainability has that same, it's not competitive. You've got people like Marks and, McDonald's and Starbucks working together on coffee cups because they know that actually if they make biodegradable coffee cups, it helps everyone else out. And I think that, and the events industry is the same. You've got venues who are learning, and they're passing on their knowledge to the organisers, and the organisers are passing it on to the suppliers, and suppliers are passing it, back to organisers, and so on. I think the challenge, there's the biggest hurdle. I think is kind of like fear. It can seem so overwhelming. You kind of don't know where to start. I mean, I've put a whole load of kind of you were talking about event design. I've put a whole load of links in the chat here. I don't know if the audience has got them, but when you're designing events, I think events in the future will take, you'll start to look at where the audiences are based and think, actually, do I need to have everyone flying to Singapore, or could I actually have some people in The Hague and some people in Singapore and some people on the the west or east coast of the US? So actually you're starting to reduce the amount of miles that people are flying. I think the travel industry, and particularly the airline manufacturers and the kind of the airlines themselves, are going to have to work pretty quickly to work out how they roll out kind of cleaner aviation fuel and actually make airline jets that are maybe green hydrogen based. Because I think the next generation coming through are going to be a lot more reluctant about getting on planes and leave, because of the impact they have. I mean, there are things you can do now around offsetting. I mean, some people think offsetting is bad, but it's better than not doing anything at all. We use a company called Ecology, and I've stuck kind of 15 links in the chat there, and I think that we're going to get and share with you. But they really allow you, when you're designing your event, to work out the footprint of people flying from particular areas, and you can either offset that yourself, or there's one on the bottom there, Good Wings, who will do that for you. And I think it will make, I think, so switching the energy to a clean energy provider in the pension bit, you can do this week. Signing up for that net zero, making that commitment, you can do this week as well. The first milestone you need to hit on that is 2023. So you don't need to do anything like immediately. But what you do need to start doing is, when you run your next event, is just start to measure the carbon and look at the impact that you're making on it. And then every year when you do your wash up, just make sure that's a KPI you keep measuring against. In the same way you look at your attendee satisfaction and your MPSs, and you look at your day delegate rates, and you look at all those things that you measure. Just do it in exactly the same way. And I don't think it needs to be that daunting. I've always, every event I've ever done, we've always had like an official show charity, and I think you can do that as well. That plays very much to the social element that we've been talking about today. I think some events will work, hybrid will work very well for them. If you're Microsoft and you're running a big annual conference to your internal staff, then that's probably something that will live a lot more in the kind of hybrid environment or the virtual environment. I think if you are, if you're an exhibition trade show and it's about lead gen and sales, I actually think that's probably when face-to-face currently actually works the best. And at the moment, I'm not really, I don't see any tech out there at the moment, really changing that. And the analogy I've always used is kind of about football. Some people always go and watch football at the stadium, and some people will watch it online or at home or whatever. And I think our events are changing into that. I think, because women are generally the kind of the main, child carers, actually a lot of our events are very male dominated. And I think what's been interesting over the last 18 months of virtual is the amount of, the kind of the female audience, is attending all of our virtual events. And I think that's something that maybe as we're designing these events, designing kind of hybrid, multi-hub events going forwards, maybe that's something that we can factor in a little bit more as well.
Well, that's great. Actually, with the links, what we'll do, we'll forward those to Adam after this, and then it will get pushed out to you guys. So that's a really sort of interesting. I think one of the things that's happened throughout the pandemic is obviously, I don't know if you're aware of VSEF, but that's basically the industry's come together and said, look, we should be delivering our data like this. So when you integrate different platforms, it works. Do you not feel that there should be some sort of cross event industry body set up to say, look, this is the minimum level that you need to be actually hitting, and then to have like almost like a kite mark to say, yeah, we apply to these guidelines, even if it's a case of just actually making those initial first steps, but to have something that's actually recognised right across the industry and can be promoted quite easily.
There is, Nick. It's one of the links. It's the one I mentioned earlier. Yeah. It's www.netzerocarbonevents.org. It's basically all the event industry associations have all got together and agreed this is what we're going to do. By 2023, you have to have a plan in place. By 2030, you've got a bit, half your emissions. By 2050, you've got to be on zero. And if you can get there faster, get there faster. I think people will get there faster. I do not think that in 2035, no one's going to be using fossil fuels. You're going to get a massive S-curve where people are going to jump out of it as quickly as possible. And I think if your business in the next 2 or 3 years is not you know, the most sustainable venue or the most sustainable event organizer, then you just won't be in business. You know, that's the simple reality, I think. And I think one of the barriers has always been, you know, I can't really afford it. Well, you know, I mean, there's so many funds and grants and loans that you can get now, and they're all on really, really good rates. You know, I mean, the Edwardian Hotels just opened a hotel in Leicester Square in London called the Londoner, and it's like the most sustainable, you know, venue ever built, and they got a loan of 100 million. So I mean, you know, there is no excuse whether you're a venue that's got a, you know, a fleet of you know, a kind of a load of old venues that need to be retrofitted and brought up to date and need their energy, you know, need to go to an A+ energy, A++ energy certification, then they can do that. You know, that if you're an AV company, you can make that change. If you're a floral company, you can make that change. You know, it's not. I don't think. And I mean, green mark. There are a few kind of benchmarks out there for the events industry already. But the best thing to do, really, switch clean energy, change your pension, and just go to www.netzerocarbonevents.org, and that'll tell you everything you kind of need to do, even if you know very little or, you know too much.
So I suppose to sort of wrap up before we receive any questions. So I'm an event organizer. My event brand's been in mothballs. My live event has been in mothballs for 2 years, like Adam's, and it's now time to come back out. I'm on board now with the fact that sustainability is hugely important, and I've really got to do something. So what do I do? Where do I start? How can I make sure that the things I'm doing now, I continue to sort of like grow them? What are the absolute bottom line? What do I do? Taken on board already that using a venue where they use sort of the right fuels. But you know, for the nitty gritty of the actual event design, what should I be looking at, Ruby?
So I guess, Nick, where we started, and that was in the throes of the chaos of the pandemic, was that we found a production partner. So start with sort of the technologies and the platforms and I guess the suppliers that you need to be able to deliver the sorts of events that you're delivering for your sector or for your clients. And there are some incredible initiatives out there. Duncan's mentioned so many of them, but there are even the likes of organisations like Event Cycle, who will upcycle. They're all about kind of the circular economy, and they will upcycle, recycle items that are left over from events, exhibitions, and shows, etc. And they will take them into communities and charities, etc. So there is usually a solution out there. And I think it is just a case of talking to your network, talking to suppliers. And again, as sort of Duncan was saying, is ensuring that your supply chain, whether it's print or merchandising or badging or tech, you're sort of scrutinizing that sort of supply chain and ensuring that they have got credentials where they are either using kind of circular practices or that they're demonstrating how sustainable they are or they can be. And it is about working with those partners, it's about collaborating, and it's about talking to other event organisers as well to see what it is that they're doing or where they started, or, you know, I've got this challenge, where do I go next? And as Duncan has told us, there are so many avenues that we can go down, and there's usually someone doing something and filling a gap somewhere. So it is a case just opening up the conversation, finding those partners, collaborating, talking to other people in the events industry, and just going from there, because that's how we did it whilst in the middle of the pandemic. Now that things are slowly sort of calming down a little bit, there are a lot of us who've had to embrace and learn and educate ourselves. So just come and talk to us, just open up the conversation and just have a chat and collaborate and use those partnerships and leverage them.
Yeah, excellent. And Basha, is there anything else you'd like to add on the human side in terms of when you're putting the event design together, just in terms of walking through the whole sort of the event schedule? You know, are there things that we can do that will make a difference?
Yeah, absolutely. And boils down to choice and accessibility from the human level, all those aspects that we've mentioned already. And I think Just to take a step back, what both Ruby and Duncan have mentioned, getting started and getting the education and the tools seems like an overwhelming task. It seems like the hardest part, and setting the goals towards sustainability and measuring them. And understandably, over the last year and a half, when the industry's priority was around survival and now about the road to recovery, naturally sustainability might not have been exactly top of the agenda for the planners, which we've all been in the same boat, but I think we all agree that it's definitely not a secondary priority, and it definitely has to become part of the top points on the agenda. And I think, to put it in the event organizer language, it's basically about the risk management of the future of our industry, and really ensuring the longevity and the duty of care. And from the human point of view, I think it basically is the duty of care, not only for the corporates, but for all of us in the industry. And we are all part of a long supply chain in the industry. So we are all each other's customer or supplier. So let's hold each other accountable, and let's share the knowledge and the tools and the sources that are out there. It's just many organizers don't realize that all those organizations that Duncan has mentioned, and obviously Reset Connect to start with, really help to put those positive intentions and translate them into actionable goals and steps that you can take one at a time without getting overwhelmed by the process. I think that's not an option. That's where we all have to head as an industry. And hopefully we want to do it because we care, and not because we're being forced to.
Yeah, excellent. I'm not sure if the host has got some questions for us, but if not, then Duncan, really time for you to take centre stage and wrap it up for us.
So there's not much actually coming, guys, on this one, but as I say, just what an absolutely massive topic. I think you've covered it absolutely brilliant. Like I say, Duncan, if you do have any closing words on this, I'll say I might have a couple of points to make, but I'll let you wrap up first and foremost.
No, I think it's a journey. It's not kind of a binary. You've got to be the most sustainable company tomorrow. The easiest thing to do, as I said, start looking at your energy provider, whether that's for your business or on the events that you actually do, and book venues that are actually starting to monitor their kind of emissions. I think there's a lot of the venues out there signed up to ISO 2012 one, and it's a good initiative, but I think it's not about continued improvement, and that's what this kind of net zero carbon events initiative is about. Is about us as an industry, continuing to improve and share from each other. There's another association called ISLA, and they are all about running sustainable events. So it's worth having a look at kind of what they do. And Anna and the team there are doing a great job. You'll find them at kind of Convex and Meeting Show and stuff like that. So there's an opportunity for you to kind of find out a little bit more. But yeah, I think the most important thing is you just got to start somewhere. There's a load of carbon tracking tools, and they can start to tell you a little bit about your footprint. There's loads of ways you can offset your energy, offset your emissions. As I say, we use a company called Ecology. There's another company called Good Wings that kind of take that agency commission on your hotels and use that to kind of plant trees and do stuff there. But I think almost the challenge of the kind of UN's SDGs is that it does, as I said at the beginning, kind of make it quite daunting. And actually, there's just so many little things you can do. Choose a show charity. Think about the different audiences that are coming to your event. One of the things that Adam and the guys are doing really well here is that they've got an in-person bit, which I'll be at later on this week. And if you're going along, I'll see you there. But I think the bit they've really done is, a couple of days beforehand, actually it opens it up to a much wider audience. We've got people on the call today from Las Vegas and from Scotland, and to come down for this one event maybe is not necessarily something that everyone will be able to do to go to every show. And I think that's what all of our events can learn from. You can think about who those different audiences are, whether they can actually attend the in-person bit. Or you might have an event up in Glasgow. You could do, if there's 100 or 1,000 people registered from Glasgow, do a little off-site up there, have some networking during the day online like this, and just do a drinks thing in the evening somewhere. So I think there's lots we can do. And I think the pandemic's kind of taught us to be very adaptive and, you know, to move quite quickly and to change things. And I think, you know, I think we need to do something similar with sustainability, or we won't have a planet in, you know, 50 years.
And that's it. And I think probably one of the most shocking
finish on that happy note, yeah.
sort of outcomes of this session for myself was just the timescales you were talking about. You know, we've always heard sort of in the media that we need to make these changes by 2050, then 2035, and it's just coming nearer and nearer. You know, and as that speed progresses, I think, you know, as an industry, we've all got that responsibility, and like you say, to collaborate, get together, and actually make the events as sustainable as we possibly can. So, as I say, thank you very much to you all, to Duncan, Ruby, Basha, and Nick. I really did enjoy that session. Hope everyone enjoyed it too. So, thank you very much to you all.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Superb stuff. So, ladies and gents, hope you did enjoy that. To say lots to take in on board. Coming up a little bit later on at 2 o'clock, our next session is my hybrid journey and how it changed the Wise Children Theatre Company forever. So, if you want to get involved with that, you can add it to your schedule. Do take this time to have a look around the site as well, because we've got a lot coming up for the full agenda for the week. As the guy said, we do have those 2 live days in London. If you can join us, and it's sustainable to do so, it'd be absolutely fantastic to see you there in person. If you do want to get involved with the live sessions on Wednesday and Thursday, just head over to eventtechlive.com. Make sure you register, and all the COVID safety procedures are online for you to take note of there as well. For now, though, we're going to take a short break. We have got another Event Tech demonstration, this time from Booth TED.